Yes.
Hello and welcome to episode 62 of the Player 3 podcast.
62.
I'm your host, Luke Croft. Alongside me, we have the always visually stunning Larry Hunt.
Hi.
And then next to him, we have Dizzy. That's already his nickname, Cooper.
Hola. I can say that. My wife taught me Spanish.
Very true. Sorry we were gone last week. Life happened.
Still hot.
I was vomiting
Out of both
profusely.
ends.
Out of both ends. Sometimes at once.
Well, let's get some announcements out of the way then, shall we?
That was an announcement.
That is an announcement. And I appreciate you not spreading those germs our direction. Because Diz already does it out of the one end anyway. He doesn't need it out of the other end.
That's potent.
What did you get? The gingerbread?
Bright sky.
Nah, the bright sky.
Oh, it shouldn't be too potent.
Well, I'm a beginner.
Psst.
Plebe.
This is a blonde roast.
It's a little bit
I'm a
lighter.
beginner.
Not as heavy a flavor. What do you have in that? That just stirred it. Just a little
I'm
Splenda?
aerating it.
Oh, you're
'Cause
aerating
it's
it.
so flipping hot, man.
You do things strangely.
You never heard of aerating?
Yes, the ground.
And Hershey's chocolate
I'm
for a
bringing-
brief stint.
I'm doing this. Getting
Or
it
like a
moving.
wine, and then you just dip your nose right down into that hotness and burn it
Sniff
all right
it.
off.
That's how you
Sniffing.
drink wine? You just snort
You
it?
snort it up your nose. You've been doing it wrong all these years.
Taking it to the brain,
Drats.
man.
Anyway,
Other-
announcement time. So we've been trying to work out what the newness of the show looks like, and so deciding on a time that works for everybody. We thought 1 o'clock was going to work. Doesn't look like it's going to work. 5 o'clock only had to work today for reasons that were out of our control. And so what we're settling on is 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next 2 weeks, and then it'll be 3 p.m. Eastern
Is that a
Daylight
gang
Time.
sign?
I hope not.
They're all gang signs at this point, man. You can't gyrate your. Oh gosh! Oh, we're targets. We're gonna get
You
banned.
had to do that in New York, man. Had to.
So 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Mondays will be the regular time. Show will go up still on iTunes and YouTube on Tuesdays. So just a little heads up there. The other major announcement for those of you that like to watch us live. Rather than doing stuff over here on Twitch, we are going to move it over to YouTube Gaming. And the reasons for that are multifaceted.
Much like a diamond.
But the main reason is it's going to help us to consolidate all of our video content onto one platform. So if you aren't subscribed over to us on youtube.com already, go to youtube.com/player3podcast. Download the YouTube Gaming app. You'll be able to watch us over there. It'll be great. It'll be fine. And then what happens is, as soon as the episode's over, it will become available on YouTube. So there will be no waiting for me to load it up to it.
Sweet.
So makes my life 1,000 times easier. Makes people who are watching us lives a little bit easier, unless you're just vehemently against any kind of content that doesn't find its way over on Twitch.
It'll
So,
be tremendous.
and we'll try it. And
Gang
if
signs.
it doesn't work for a while, we may switch it back. But this is just what we feel like we should do. So that's what we're gonna do. Anyway.
That's the news.
That's it.
News
Thanks
with
for
the
tuning in,
podcast,
guys.
All right, so
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I mess up a joke?
I was setting one up. Were you?
I know. Go ahead.
No, let's continue.
All right. Anyway, we are the Player 3 podcast. We get together every Monday to talk about video games over here on twitch.tv/player3podcast. Send it out to you on youtube.com/player3podcast. You can find us all over the interwebs on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher. Leave us a review. Speaking of reviews, I've got some reviews for you. So hold on, let me not
Dude,
that.
for real?
Yeah, hold on. Let me
Oh yeah.
navigate over here real quick.
These are my favorite, man. We just don't. It's been a while, but I love them.
So if you hit, when we have a lot to catch up on, so we're only going to read one a week. But if you want your review read out on the podcast, just go over to our iTunes page, drop us a review over there. It does the podcast a tremendous service, because the more of those we can rack up, the more that it begins to rank up on iTunes when they go to the gaming section.
That's also where we were described as what? Southern gentlemen.
Southern gentlemen.
By Phantom Force. Where's that guy?
He tweeted at me yesterday, actually. and suggested a topic that we're not going to do because it was E3 predictions, and we're a little
do
far
a whole
out.
Special show for that.
Yeah, we'll do a whole special show, and we still got some stuff to come. Like, we have GDC coming. There's going to be a PlayStation VR event. Tomorrow is when the embargo lifts for the last last week's Windows 10 event. So a lot of stuff that we don't know right now that we don't want to throw out for possible E3 that could then just go to waste. So
I've never been a part of a milkshake bet before. First time.
I'm excited for you to lose your first milkshake bet to me.
All right.
The best part about last year's milkshake bet with E3 was Seth went just tee the ball up and hit it out there and still lost. Like he had the Fallout, because didn't you win?
Yeah, I won.
Because he had like the Fallout prediction that Fallout would be announced, but it was weird. Fallout got announced like a week before, like officially announced the week before,
count.
and so it didn't count.
And he had a second one that was announced before E3.
Yeah, but it was just, we were joking him because he was just soft tossing them to himself, but it ended up all being wrong. All right, this review comes from That's Graffiti.
Yeah.
It says, this podcast is legit. This podcast is legit. It's fun to listen to, informative, and the guys are just awesome. These guys know their stuff and are just passionate about gaming. It's definitely worth checking out and subscribing to. So, like I said, you want us to read your review out on the air, leave it over for us on iTunes, and we will definitely do that. Also, Ben's not here today. He's dead yet again. Apparently, when you die, you don't come back. Who'd have known?
Look, every show on the CW tells me differently.
Spoiler alert. For every show to ever air on the CW, spoilers.
For real.
So we won't have the stuff popping up on the screen this week. So let's jump right into it, guys. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's move into our releases of the week. All right.
Hey, thanks for the review. That's Graffiti.
Yeah, thank you. Releasing on both consoles this week, again, we just talk about games that sound interesting to us. These two games really sounded interesting to me. We have Alkine's Gun. I'm going to read the description for you here. You are Agent Alkine, a highly skilled Russian assassin working alongside American CIA agents during the Cold War.
I like it.
Which doesn't sound right, but it might be.
Hey, shrouded man.
As the tension of a nuclear standoff grows with each passing minute, the fate of America and quite possibly the world lies within your hands. Now, the only thing I saw of this was the picture.
It's a lot of pressure.
But the picture made it look like this was like a third-person action game. And that storyline is really interesting to me, because I don't feel like we tackle the Cold War very often. Because nothing happened.
I was about to say, I feel like a realistic tackling of the Cold War would be a very boring video game.
It's just Diplomacy 2016.
The best thing you could have is really a video game based on war games with Matthew Broderick and Ali Sheedy.
That went over my head.
Nobody?
No, that was oh gosh, what was it called?
War games.
Yes, the chess game where he fought against the computer.
Yeah. He thought he was playing a video game, but really he had accidentally hacked into a government computer that controlled all of America's nukes, and he was about to start a nuclear war.
Nuclear.
I think it ran on
Nuclear.
DOS.
Yeah.
It was old, man.
Dot matrix printers. I don't. Were those around?
That's how it communicated its moves.
But this game sounded really interesting to me. The only other game I can think of that dealt with anything really that, I mean, I'm sure there's more, but didn't Black Ops 1 start at the Bay of Pigs?
Yes.
In the attempt to assassinate Fidel?
Yeah. Big mess up on our
Oh
part.
yeah.
I thought it was Black Ops. It was a Call of Duty game.
It was someone's likeness, like he was a real dude. It starts with an N, doesn't it?
No. Fidel Castro.
Was
We
it
tried
him?
to assassinate Castro in the Bay of Pigs,
Then what's that one mission?
sparking the Cuban Missile Crisis, right?
No.
Yeah, right?
I think we broke Dizzy.
No.
Tune in next week, guys.
There's another game where they have a likeness of a real political person, and they got real upset about it.
Oh, yeah, they're getting sued currently over the representation of some African warlord who was apparently a really... That may have been his name, I don't know. Who was apparently a really great guy.
Are you singing Welcome to the Jungle?
I hate that band so much.
Somebody look it up. We got devices to do so.
No.
I'm not sure what to think of this currently.
Look, one time, our friend Cameron threw a stick across the room. and it hit Dizzy right in the eye.
My biggest fear is losing an eye. Biggest fear.
And once he was okay, I was able to look back on it and laugh. And the moment was terrifying, but he just fell on the floor screaming, "Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!" for like 20 minutes.
Noriega.
Noriega. No.
No, Noriega.
What's up, Stafidi?
Look, I would be upset if a video game had me getting assassinated, and I can relate. But I'm also not a violent war criminal.
Well, it wasn't just so much that he got killed in the game, spoiler alert, but that they just characterized him as an awful human being.
Is he though?
But he's getting but Call of Duty's getting sued by the family of this guy. So they're like, he was awesome. We wouldn't be here without him.
Yeah.
We should stop before we get sued by him too, because we don't have the same lawyers as Activision does. So that game looked interesting to me. Mm-hmm. Then this is the game I'm really interested in Larry's thoughts on, called Screen Cheat, coming to both consoles. Screen Cheat is a split-screen first-person shooter that centers around the conceit of screen cheating, peeping, looking at the screens of other players to locate their position. In Screen Cheat, all players are invisible, turning this controversial tactic into the core mechanic of the game. This is super creative. I love this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But wait, it doesn't have to be local? Like, how can you see the other person's screen?
Yeah, it's local split screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like every time Diz starts talking, he has to remind himself how a microphone works, because he starts back here.
I'd lean so far away.
But any good screen cheating stories for us, Larry? I think we've told screen cheating stories on 3 Topic Thursday. Do you have any good ones? I'm sure you've raged several times.
I have. Like, I've always been a very honorable human being, so like I literally don't screen cheat. And when I accidentally catch myself, I out loud say, "I'm sorry, I've been screen cheating," and then I'll run away and lose sight of where the person was.
Oh, wow. Valiant.
So when Cameron Milam constantly screen cheated, I just wanted to murder him in his sleep. I can't point to a single incident. I just know it happened a lot.
Just it involves Cameron.
Like there are times where there's no way that guy found me here. He was looking at my screen hacker.
You screen hacker. You hacking with your eyes, looking over here at me.
It was so tough, though. I mean, because if you're playing local Halo back in the day, when you subconsciously see someone zoom into the sniper scope, you just look.
Yeah,
that
you're
is
terrified.
And to a point, you can't avoid that feedback's gonna, even if you don't look, like you hear and start weaving. You hear the rockets load. All right, just jump.
I feel like this would be a really fun game to stream.
Yeah,
to stream people playing, and so depending on how much this costs, I'm interested in it.
I am interested.
But it's also one of those games like you can't play by yourself.
I wonder how I guess all you need is a reticle, aiming and stuff like. I guess maybe you're not invisible on your own screen. I don't know.
That was my question. Like, can you see yourself on the other person's screen? Or
I don't think so. I would doubt it.
They can't see you, but I would hope you can see yourself to a point.
But it's first person, so all you're seeing is really the reticle, probably.
Yeah.
Because you don't see yourself in. I mean, you see your hand in Halo, but
yeah.
That's
what I was saying is like aiming down the sights and stuff. I guess it won't be an aiming down the sights game. It'll just be a reticle game.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Sounds really awesome, though. And then releasing on PS4 is Heavy Rain. And I put this down on there because I never had a chance to play Heavy Rain from Quantic Dreams. And I was always interested in it. I've heard a lot of good things about it. And I didn't want to try Beyond Two Souls before I tried Heavy Rain because I've always heard Heavy Rain's the better of the two. So definitely something I'm interested in jumping back into. Anything that released this week that you guys were particularly interested in? I feel like we're going to be interested in a lot of the same things.
Maybe I should have thrown this into the news area, but did you see anything about the HoloLens dev kits that went out?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Well, they've put those out, and they shipped with a game called Fragments, which I didn't read much up on, but one of the games they shipped with was Young Conquer, so Conquer the Squirrel.
Oh, okay.
But the way the game works is it's a platformer that is built in the environment that you're in. And that idea fascinates me. So wherever you're playing it, it's a different kind of game.
But if I only play in one place, is it only one level?
I don't know.
I have to just keep looking at different walls and going to different places in my house?
If I'm in a room with just one end table, what does that level look like?
This is the easiest game ever, guys. You can get Remy started on that. It's a very simple game, and plus, I'm sure for her not fully developed eyesight, wearing a headset projecting things onto a real world environment is going to go a long way in stifling whatever kind of perfect vision she's hoping to have.
Not to mention her right now not being intellectually able to separate the abstract thought that what I'm seeing isn't real. That'd be cool. That'd be neat.
And the fact
That'd be neat.
and the fact she would almost instantly rip that expensive piece of equipment off of her head and throw it onto the ground.
Yeah.
All right. We're trying something a little different here. We cover the news, and we're still going to cover the news. But there's news that means more to some of us than others. And so we're going to have a section called Topics. We used to do 3 topics. Just topics.
With
just
an X?
Yes.
Ah.
XOPICS. Topics.
Beautiful.
And in this section, we each come with our own story of interest. And we just tell the other people why it matters. Now, this was just something that kind of came into fruition this weekend. Came into our mind. And so Larry didn't have time to find anything that wasn't already in the show
I
notes.
looked. There was just nothing that mattered to me
Right.
by that point.
So Diz has 2. I have 1. And so we'll start with you. Tell me your first story, why it matters, and then we'll all talk about it.
Me?
Yep.
Oh, beautiful. So, the word that they've been using is leak. Now, I'm not a big fan of those things, but when I heard this one, I was all about it. But it is leaked that it's possible that Battlefield 5 will be set in World War I. If you've watched 3 Topic Thursday in the past, you know that I'm all about that idea. Because it has the potential to be something absolutely insane. Inherently, it could just be a World War I game where you're just playing an allied person against the Central Powers. But I feel that this has the potential to be incredible because there's a lot of underlining darkness that happened in World War I.
As opposed to the bright and shining warfare of most other conflicts.
Exactly. But we hear more about that. That.
Yeah.
Like we don't hear a lot about the Armenian genocide, We hear a lot about the poisonous gases, but we don't hear about the invasion of Belgium. We don't hear about this stuff. But I feel after we've seen No Russian and Valiant Hearts, now this is a possible chance for them to take it one step further and to make it realistic, to make it almost educational in a way. Like, I believe right now that war games that people are playing have become incredibly competitive to the point of it starts to overshadow. We kind of forget, if not validate, the carnage of war. So, the thing I want to bring up with you guys is what would you guys think of if they just did their best to make this World War I game as realistic as possible in adding all of these facts, all these terrible events that are overshadowed in history? Like, do you think that a player should be a part of that? Do you think a player should be a part of the scene of the Armenian genocide? Do you think a player should be a part of launching these poisonous gases on people? Or do you think that that's something that should remain in the past? I like the history.
Yeah, I think World War I's such an interesting time, from a video game standpoint, number one, because it's kind of just an unexplored field. Outside of Valiant Hearts, we really don't have like a World War I game. A lot of World War II games. And I think the reason for that is because with it being such a visual medium, World War I was really one of the last wars to be fought that wasn't documented in the modern sense of the word. Like, video wasn't that common, photography wasn't that common, radio wasn't even all that common at the time, and so like it's almost, I mean, we have more history on it now than we ever have, just from the retelling of stories and just the basic principles of history. But at the time, it was way more of a lost war than World War II was, and so now where video games have gone from trying to replicate what actually happened to now having this kind of artistic licensure to fill in the blanks on some stuff. World War One becomes this totally open thing of saying, here's all these players, here's how they interconnect, and we can kind of fill in the gaps on some of these stories. Now, about having the agency over some of these just hideously awful things that were done, I talked to you about this yesterday, and I guess it's kind of my question is, No Russian was in 2009, right? Something like that, 2008, 2009. Do you think in just the way society has shifted in the last 7-8 years, Call of Duty could have gotten away with No Russian in 2016?
Nah, this is the year of we're offended by everything.
I just see it as an injustice. Like you were talking about how they have the artistic license. Like, you look at Wolfenstein, and they've just blown up this idea of what the Nazis were doing by, like, you know, making these mutant creatures and stuff. And I feel like that's an injustice because it overshadows, like, the people that actually had to endure this stuff. Like,
right.
It's becoming a mockery almost.
But it's so over the top that there's a suspension of reality to it that gets disconnected. And, you know, you talk about, like, the Armenian genocide. It would almost be like, should we have a game where the player has agency in a Japanese internment camp or in a, go ahead.
Now, I do think those things should be faithfully represented, but I don't know if we should have someone actually having to play through it, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not one of these guys that's going to censor games, and I'm like, No Russian shouldn't have been in a game, but I hated that No Russian was in a game. I guess most people probably didn't enjoy No Russian.
Yeah, there was something visceral about it.
But they also understood that because they gave you the option to not play it, though. That was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I didn't think so. Because my thing is, if you're going to tell the story and you're going to take the risk, take the risk. You know, if you think it's really something to where you should give people the option, weigh it of, is this something that we should put in the game? And if you're going to, put it in the game. Because the story mattered. The part of the mission mattered. And I don't know, maybe you pick it up after you go through the airport. I never played it not going through the No Russian. But that mission was really important to the story of that particular Call of Duty game. And so I just think if you're gonna have the balls to put it in, have the balls to say this is our story and this is how we're going to tell it. Now back to the agency thing. The interesting thing about No Russian is you didn't have to shoot a single person.
Truth.
You could have gone through and not shot anybody. I've never talked to anybody that did that, at least on their first playthrough. Maybe they learned that they could do that and went back and did it like that. But I know I didn't, because you just think like, well, I got to fit in with these guys that I'm kind of trying to infiltrate, and so I'm just going to join in. But when it comes to World War I think you can tell the story in its context without giving players agency over the context, because a lot of those horrific elements of that war, because No Russian, that didn't actually happen. Mm-hmm. There's no survivors of that incident, you know. But we're talking in World War I about things that affected family members of people that are still alive today, and you give player the agency over that. Like, it only happened in one way. It only happened in one particular way. So why would you need to give players the agency to carry it out in the one way that it went down if you're just trying to maintain the historical context of it?
I don't want to talk over you, but I have.
You're good.
Okay. I'm just being
Conversational.
Okay. But the reason why I brought it up is because I believe the game was called Spec Ops, something like that, back in the day. They had a mission where you had to endure, like, witnessing what you've done. Like, it's called the White Phosphorus mission or something like that, where you drop it on these people and then you go down, and it's just, it brings you back to reality of, like, yes, this is a game, but war is not a game. It's people are really dying. And I think that was a very impactful moment for a lot of gamers because of this suspension of reality, where they're fighting these other people, having a good time, but, you know, people legitimately die in real life. And I just didn't know if it was like I said, an injustice to those people.
Now, even though I may not agree with how you would like to see it implemented, I do agree with the heart of what you're saying of, like, we've turned it into a fun competition, and it could be an opportunity to be something educational for people. I like that idea of bringing it back to reality of war sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how many people would. I'm a huge fan of the Hunger Games. I picked that first book up several years back and went to the store the day after, bought the next two, and finished it within like 5
Wait, they made
days.
books out of the movies?
I need you to wrap that cord around your neck. But have you seen the movies or read the books?
Just seeing the movies.
Okay, so the central theme of it is just that war, no matter how necessary it is, it hurts everybody involved. That's one of the main themes of the series. And in the third movie, there's not a whole lot of action, and a lot of people didn't like that third movie because there wasn't all these big killing scenes. And to me, that was so indicative of where our culture is at, because that third movie was her grappling with the PTSD of what she's done, and like it was her experiencing the emotional toll of war. And we're like, we don't want to see that. We want to see her kill some more people.
Which I think is the question we've got to consider when we talk about this. Like, the audience of these games at this point in your franchises like Call of Duty and Battlefield, is there that space, that kind of intellectual wiggle room with those audiences to say, like, where we've really just told these action-packed, explosion-filled stories, can we now tell something more grounded and emotional that's going to get you to understand the magnitude of what you're doing? And I would argue that the answer to that question is no.
I think it could be. I think you can surprise people with it, and then make them think. You said white phosphorus. That's the stuff that like burns, right?
It sticks on you. And
there's a Homefront mission in the original Homefront game where you decide to do whatever it takes, and you get some white phosphorus and drop it on people, and you don't get out in time, and you have to wander through this field of people.
That's what it is. I thought it was Spec Ops, so I guess it's Homefront though.
They may have done the same thing,
Okay.
but I remember like that was really impactful for me. Just wandering through this field of people who were just sizzling and screaming because of what I had just done. I think you can put it in there. Now, whether people hear the message or not.
Right.
is
And that's the
another thing.
thing. Like, there were 2 Hunger Game movies before that were all characterized by, violence and whatever. And so when the third one gets there, people are like, what? And they're so irate about what's missing that they don't recognize what's in front of there. Battlefield is you had Bad Company, which made a huge joke out of war, for 2 games. Like, and so like, and even though like the regular like rooted Battlefield experience it doesn't rest in that, it does still rest in that like high explosive. Like, we're not telling a story as much as we are just showing a whole lot of awesome action. I think about like The Witch, where we've conditioned ourselves so much with horror, where it's like it's got to be jump scares and all this gore and all this stuff, and you go into The Witch and there's really only a few moments of real actual like fright. There's tension throughout it, and people would leave and they're like, it was the stupidest movie ever. And you can argue it wasn't a great movie, but I think it all stems from it not being what you expected it to be. And I think The Witch lost a lot of what it was trying to communicate within it because people were upset about what was missing. And I think in a game especially, like, movies have a lot more license to do that sort of stuff. I don't think games have earned that license, especially in an established franchise like that, to tell those stories and to do it in that way, especially in like a Battlefield. Now, if it was a new IP like Homefront, very first game that comes out from this thing, we're going to establish the tone from the outset. That's a little different to me than a game that's had 7-8 games come out.
Yeah.
And the last one being Hardline that had like no story. Not a good one, at least. But I think it's an interesting discussion to have, just about what we can have agency over. And I do think as humans, there are things that we should never like I said, I don't think we're in a day today where no Russian would have flown. And I don't know necessarily if that's a bad thing. Like, it was almost that if you talk about games that have gone too far, that's one of the main things that people think about. Like, because like GTA is wacky and over the top, and all the stuff that happens, like, you can just chalk it up to it being the genre and the mode. But with Call of Duty, you realistically are stepping into these people's shoes and making these decisions, and I just think that's a little different. So,
Excellent.
all right, next topic. I want to talk about Vive's pricing.
Oh yeah.
HTC Vive came
Let's
out.
talk about that.
So we had Oculus Rift come out. We had Oculus Rift announce their pricing, $600. The all-in price for the rig with the PC rig that could run it would be about $1,800. The HTC Vive announced its pricing, $799, so $800. All-in pricing closer to $2,000 with a rig that would be able to run it. So, with HTC Vive coming out at this price point, and with PlayStation VR kind of being the last out of the gate, let's just have a quick discussion about pricing of these devices and what we're thinking about them.
We've talked about this a little bit before on this show, and I know at least at that point I was kind of the outlier on this, but I just maintain that this price point's too big for it to take off in any kind of meaningful way. I think you're going to have people who adopt because they can afford to adopt it, but unless I don't know if we're going to get enough people adopting it early on for us to get that point where it starts to decrease in price and really get widespread adoption. HTC, I didn't even realize was in the arena on this, to be honest. That kind of took me by surprise. See, I have more faith in some of these other companies, HTC, and so you have HTC. PS4 has the Oculus, right?
No, PS4 is PlayStation VR.
All right.
Oculus is the Facebook and Valve.
I have more
one.
faith in Oculus and Vive, regardless of a difference in price point, just because PlayStation is notorious for not supporting things for very long if they don't immediately take off. But it's such a big price barrier. It's so big.
The question becomes about software, I think, with some of these. And it's like, what's the software you're going to get on the Vive? What's the software you're going to get on the Oculus?
Can I mention that?
Yeah.
In the article that we were reading, I realized that I would have to spend almost 2 weeks of my pay to play a game called Job Simulator. No. They're shooting themselves in the foot, man.
So it comes with two games, Job Simulator, and I can't remember what the other one is. But
I didn't check. Are there details on what these games entail yet?
Job Simulator is literally like you work in an office, I think.
What?
I started thinking about this. This may be totally outlandish, and we'll get back to the point here in a moment. And I was thinking about this on just a multiple range of like platforms you could do it on. But are we going to get to the day where you can go through these like virtual real life things that count as real life job experience?
Oh my God.
Not necessarily that you get paid to do it, but that you can play Job Simulator version 5.0 or whatever in the future, and you can take on the job of being a social media manager or whatever. And the AI has a lot of like real world scenarios in it that you have to go through. And playing this game for X amount of time counts on your resume as a year of experience.
I don't know.
I think it's time for some wild speculation.
Oh,
Yeah.
wild speculation.
What sort of job training could be done through VR?
Oh gosh.
So you decide to wait tables and they've got 3 tables. You got the annoying old man who's just a big butthole to you about everything.
Yes.
You got the table with kids making a horrible mess. It just teaches you not to strangle the customers.
Oh, okay.
And you have to decide. You're like, I have one dump in me. Which plate do I poop in?
And how many times can you fail before they say sorry, you can't continue? So you strangled 15 children.
And your headset just doesn't work anymore. It doesn't even turn on. Yeah, I think you could do that. Any kind of like office work where you're just filing paperwork, and you could do virtual internships where you're just getting coffee and making copy runs and all that sort of stuff. I'm trying to think of ones that won't get me in trouble.
That's what I'm fighting
That's
with.
the trick.
That's what I'm fighting with. Oh gosh. Well, I mean, can't you do like some sort of like realistic virtual surgery or birthing games?
I don't know how. Maybe the birth. I still don't know. It's so intricate. I don't know how you would do it and be like, hey man, you cut this virtual guy's chest open and worked on his heart. Let's try that on a real one. And even more so, I think it's like, hey, you brought this baby into this world via cesarean in this video game on the HTC Vive. Let's give you a scalpel and hope you don't hit the skull here.
It could be a good first step in training, though.
Yeah.
Like after that, you move on to cadavers or something.
The natural progression. It's the circle of life. We are getting closer and closer to the Wall-E world here.
Beautiful. It's my favorite.
I've never watched that movie,
Really? Okay.
so I don't.
Better yet, what are some jobs you couldn't do? Like a police sketch artist. You can't do that in virtual reality.
Why not? Why not?
Because they're describing the person to you with the headset. You got to be able to see the piece of paper you're drawing on. You can't do that in VR. So police sketch artist is not a job.
This may be too far.
Perfect, because it may open the floodgates.
I'm thinking of the training we have to undergo for camp.
Oh
No, that is too far. Too far.
That's too far.
Like how to recognize. We'll stop. You walk into a room.
They are. Look at that guy. He's just teaching the kid about.
And what I'm referencing is
This is inside baseball here.
When you work with kids, some organizations you have to learn to recognize people that shouldn't be working with kids.
Oh man.
It's like options. What do? Do you report him? Do you hit him with a baseball bat?
You hit him with a baseball bat.
All right, well, we appreciate you hitting him with that baseball bat, but you're too violent to work here. Sorry.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm sorry you failed because your response time should have been under 15 seconds. Yours was 26 minutes.
I had to poop. I didn't know what to do. Same thing with the surgery. Got in there and I immediately had to use the bathroom. I had to leave the guy open on the table.
Well, it's not this fact so much that you had to use the bathroom. It's where you used the bathroom.
There wasn't a pause, man.
The guy open on the table is not the place.
Lifeguard training. I'm up on the stand where I'm really just sitting in my recliner.
You set your coffee on the
I
dash.
set my coffee on the dash. Kid's drowning in there. I legitimately dive off of my couch, end up breaking my neck. I'm dead on the ground, and now a real life lifeguard has to come get me.
Have you seen the GIF of the? There's a guy playing VR, and there's a girl with a very severe case of RBF sitting like she's just staring at the camera deadpan while he's like going.
Yes, I have seen that. He's like turning things.
See, and this is one of the reasons that I don't know if I will ever be able to get into VR. I don't like to look up when I'm around people because people are going to neck chop me. How many people do you think are getting hit in the nuts by their friends? I mean, you're in this headset. You got these things on. I leave my front door unlocked for you guys regularly, and I'm just down here, and all of a sudden, I'm having to open up Surgeon Simulator and do testicular surgery.
We need to copyright that YouTube channel right now.
Okay,
VR
write it down.
Shots.
VR. Go to our youtube.com/VR Nutshots. Oh man.
Okay, can I
Reel it back in? Yeah.
Okay. I don't mean to put you on the spot or anything, and I apologize, but I think it's okay. But you do have a visual.
Yeah, I'm legally blind in my left eye. Yeah.
Will you be able to use?
I'm a big old blind.
I didn't want to say disability.
about that.
I didn't want to say disability.
I was like, holy cow, what secrets about me does he know?
Now that guy you strangled to death a few years back, you asked me to help hide the body and not ever say a word about.
Now that dude that works at Food Line that you said you were gonna kill immediately upon the start of the zombie apocalypse.
He's been missing for
Yes,
a week.
I am visually impaired.
Yes. Will you be able to use VR or AR?
As far as I know, the PlayStation VR fits over glasses, and I'm sure the other two do. And where my vision is, like my left eye does enough to get me through some things. Now, if it's anything like replicated 3D or something like that, I wouldn't be able to do it because my eyes don't mesh the images together well enough to do it. But I feel like it would have to be something I would try out before. But from what I can tell, I'd be okay with trying it out.
Because I was like, they're already kind of keeping the lower tiered financial people out of here, and I'm seeing if they're also.
So now you're calling me.
visually
Now you're
impaired
calling me
out.
blind and poor.
Yes. I'm seeing if they were shoving off a second part of the population.
So Luke, let me just list all the reasons you can't get into this thing. Number one, your left eye is crap. Second of all, you ain't got a job.
Third, your head is a little abnormal.
Job simulator. I buy the headset and I automatically get a job. Honey, it's an $800 investment into my career. I'm going to be a surgeon after this. Yes. She comes home, the dog is just wide open on the kitchen floor.
What if they release an expansion pack, Unemployment Simulator? No, you go home and you just sit on your couch and play VR. So in the VR, you got to put on a VR headset.
$30 expansion.
And it's just all about how to explain to your wife when she gets home how you afford it buying the VR headset.
But the only game you have inside the VR game is Job Simulator.
It's Inception. That's the ending to Job Simulator. It pans out and it's you on the couch playing Job Simulator on your VR headset. Gosh, this is brilliant. vrnutshots.youtube.com and Unemployment Simulator. They just mocap me for 2 weeks. They're like, golly, that guy goes to the bathroom a lot. Oh, man. All right. Back to the Vive, though. $800. Now, what's interesting about the Vive's pricing is the Vive has a lot more technology than the Oculus or the VR or PlayStation VR does. It's got room tracking and there's all kinds of different motion sensing that's in it that's not in these other devices. However, you also have to have a dedicated room to play it in. Whereas VR, you don't, like PlayStation VR, you don't.
See,
go ahead.
I imagine that even being a bigger obstacle for people than even the price point.
Yeah, because now you're like, you need square footage for this joint. And if you're playing Job Simulator, you probably don't have enough money to have a spare room, all right?
And my wife's pretty cool, but she's not going to be cool with me clearing out the guest room and turning it into the VR room.
My wife's pretty cool, but she's not going to be cool with me being unemployed. I do think this is good news for PlayStation VR because I think they can release this at a price a little bit more advantageous to them from a business perspective, which may be able to extend the life of the PlayStation VR. If they can go into this saying we're going to sell it at cost rather than taking a loss on each of these things, it can extend the amount of like time that they dedicate to backing it. And I remember now the discussion that we had about you saying that the price point is going to be too high, but I think this really is like a luxury gaming experience here in the beginning, and first gen technology of anything is going to be a little bit pricier than it is going to ultimately settle out to be just as parts and stuff become cheaper and cheaper. The reason PlayStation VR is going to, I think, be more successful than either of these two is because most people already own what they need to plug it into. Mm-hmm. Like, you can game on a PC that costs way less than $1,200. You cannot virtual reality game on a PC that costs way less than $1,200. And so I would be interested to see out of all the PC gamers, how many of them have a rig that can just run this without them having to do anything to it, this or the Vive. I think we're going to see PlayStation VR around $400. It can't be more than the console, right? You can't say, hey, here's $400 for the console, $500 for this peripheral.
Surely not.
I don't think you can do that. But who knows? What I would love to see is PlayStation VR be like, Oculus came out at $600, Vive came out at $800, $1,600, boys. We're just getting wacky with this stuff. We're going to drive you to bankruptcy alongside your unemployment. You're going to have to take out a mortgage for this thing, leverage it against your house. You're going to have to let a hobo move into that room. You can't use it as a VR room. Just put us in all these predicaments. Any other thoughts? My neck hurts.
I'm good.
I liked that. That was my favorite part. I mean, that was good. Let's just end the podcast.
All right. Later.
Seth's
Later,
telephone
Peter.
number is.
All right. Diz,
Yes.
talk to me. Next topic.
Well, I mean, I do need to talk to you, yes. All right, so there's an article that said that the Call of Duty developers are saying that they will continue to put strong female characters in their games. Now, I think that's pretty cool because what the article was saying was that there's a strong female population.
You're a strong, independent woman.
In the military, and if the World War I talk had any bearing, I like the accuracy of it. So I think it's really cool that they're having these strong female characters. Now, the thing is about the article is that it was very much also about a second topic, because at the very bottom, they said just outright, only 22% of game developers are females. So I feel like that article transitioned to how do we get more females into video games? So do you think having strong female characters in video games is like the best tactic to get female gamers? Because I'm not sure.
Well, they're not talking about gamers. They're talking about developers, right?
But I guess the natural progression is you become interested in video games, then you get interested in making games. It's like you got to make a person cold before they want to buy a quilt.
I've never heard that.
It's perfect.
Did
It's
you
because
make that up?
I just came up with it.
That's good. That's good.
That's why the quilt industry isn't hopping for the homeless in Miami, but the homeless in New York, you can sell those things for hundreds of dollars and they still can't afford them.
Nope. They could not.
This is interesting. Does you being able to play as a dude make you more interested in a game?
I think it's more the opposite, honestly. This kind of goes back to what we talked about last time.
You love playing as a lady?
No. That's kind of.
Oh, Paul's agree. No.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, in SSX Tricky, Kaori was my jam, but other than that.
Now, when you say play as a lady, does that mean my attire as I am playing is that of a lady? Because there's a nice breeze.
I don't even remember. What are we talking
I'm sorry. I interrupted you, but for the sake of comedy.
Oh, it was kind of like, this kind of goes back to what we briefly touched on last time we podcasted. I think that females in games is less inspiring more females to play games, and it's more happening as more females are into gaming, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Just, I don't know. Some people, they get on a game and they just want to be something totally different, but a lot of us, our avatars and stuff, we want them to be as similar to us as they can. So if their goal is to wind up inspiring more game developers through this, I just don't think that's going to do much, but
I would love to see what the percentage in other industries are too.
Mm-hmm.
Like what is 22%? Is that massively low for other tech industries? Is it high? Is it right around what other tech industries are calling for? I don't necessarily think one has a bearing on another, because we live in a world now where, especially people our age, like we just want to interact with media that's good, not necessarily media that we identify or can see ourselves in, whereas like growing up, the boy doesn't want to play with the dolls because, they're girls and whatever. Like, I just don't think that that's the case anymore. Like I enjoyed The Last of Us in the sections I played as Joel and in the sections I played as Ellie. Spoiler alert, he plays Ellie in The Last of Us.
So, what is a good route, you think, to attract more female gamers? For me, I feel like just over the years, the stigma that existed of being a gamer is going away. It's becoming a more prominent culture. But I think the number one thing that'll get female gamers involved is if the dudes stop being absolute buttholes on online games.
I think the
Yes.
best way to attract female gamers is that when one comes into the lobby with you, you immediately ask for their phone number.
That's it.
But
We went to college with that guy.
But recent
For real?
recent studies are showing that there's an equal amount of female gamers as there are male gamers, and that isn't. And the more I read, that's not just because mobile's included or whatever. Like in terms of console gaming, there is almost a 1-to-1 ratio of male to female people playing, but the amount of people that dominate like deep interest in it, listening to podcasts, visiting these sites, working in the industry, they aren't seeing that same growth. But I think it's a natural progression of the more that females get interested in it, the more that, but it's not because like, oh, in Call of Duty, I can play as the Sparrow and I'm a girl with bow and arrows. Like I don't, that's a very reductive way to look at it. And I just don't think it really has much bearing at all.
And when it comes down to the number of women who are employed in game development, I think we've got to have a more realistic understanding of the time frame in which our way of viewing things has shifted. Just the reality is there's still a lot of people who are modeling their lives around pretty traditional gender norm, like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's shifting. And I don't think there are a lot of people who have a problem with the shift. I think it's just, it's going to take time before we see it kind of balance out. Because there's still plenty of people choosing to go about things the other way.
So would that make it more of a social outcry? Like, are we going to have a game of a gender fluid character or something? Like, that's why I see it going.
Well,
It was a cultural outcry.
I don't think it's a cultural outcry as much as it is just the echo chamber of the world we live in now. That like, but I mean, what do you mean by fluid, like gender fluid? Because I think of like Minecraft story mode. It's the same character, either female or male. We're seeing more and more games where you can create your character female or male. I think the real statement that the games industry makes on strong female characters aren't in your Call of Duties. They're in your games like Horizon Zero Dawn, where this story is about a woman in this world, and you're going to play as this woman, and you're going to see that she is just as awesome as these guys are, and maybe even more awesome because she's fighting giant robots that aren't dinosaurs.
They are
look,
not dinosaurs.
They are not dinosaurs, but they look a lot like dinosaurs. That looks like a dinosaur, walks like a dinosaur, and makes noises like a dinosaur.
Oh.
It is not a dinosaur.
Well, what I meant by the gender fluid thing is like we now we have a culture right now where there are multitudes of groups just clamoring for equality, which I'm fine with, but we're seeing a lot about the feminist movement and all that stuff, which is great. But are we just not?
You need to silence that.
Are we not to see them having to come out and say, "Hey, we will continue to have strong female characters," as a response to that? To say that, hey, we get it, we're cool, we're with you guys.
I really think it's just pandering. Like, I don't think it's no one's looking at Call of Duty and being like, you guys, are you going to be the ones forging the social path for us in terms of females being represented in gaming? And I think it's just more of like hey, here's a little soundbite that makes us sound real awesome. And it's not necessarily and I would argue that what they're doing is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing at all. But when you put it out there in a way knowing like GameSpot's going to write an article, our boy Eddie over at GameSpot's going to write about this, it just comes across as pandering. Because Call of Duty, you're not necessarily known as like the stomping grounds of social movements or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I think we need to recognize that anybody at this point who is very vocal in what they're doing with including certain groups in their media is they are pandering and trying to just score points with certain demographics.
In fact, the most progressive of the thought is in with like Naughty Dog, where they're like, look, we have this story we want to tell. It's got this black female character in it. Before we ever had the concept art, we casted this white female voice actor to portray her, and we're not backtracking on that because it doesn't matter. And I think that's the thing, is like not everything has to be this social calling. Not everything has to have this voice. And the voices that we do have, I think, are the ones that say we can move beyond all of these identifications and just say we're interested in making a good product, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And that's when true equality comes in. where it's not a conversation piece, where Call of Duty doesn't have to come out and be like, we're going to continue to put strong female characters that most people won't even play as because you go straight to the multiplayer anyway. And I don't know. I get a little frustrated by it because I want to see the day where none of this matters. Like, we don't care about it anymore. And maybe these are the natural steps you have to take to get there. But I'm just one of those people, like, I don't care. Like, I don't care what you identify as or who you are as a human being. Like, let's treat each other with kindness and whatever and get along in life. So,
Pandering, that's the word.
And when I saw the article, I thought,
yeah,
there's no other reason to say this than just,
absolutely.
You guys, we're Call of Duty socially conscious.
Especially like this late into, that's what bothers me about all this. Like, when someone comes out supporting this group, or when somebody comes out and we're like, oh, like as gay, and we're like, oh, it's so courageous. I'm like, if you waited this late in the ball game, it's not courageous anymore.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. I think that segment's going to be awesome.
I wanted to say something like that, but I'm glad you guys did it for me.
You're so courageous for coming out saying that you support us.
It wasn't late in the game.
It was as late as you can get. Two of the three people in this population had already come around. All right, moving on. We got a few news stories here. First of all, I want to bring up a new Player 3 podcast policy and get you guys' thoughts on it. We'll put this to a live vote. I am sick and tired of Kojima news, all right? I'm sick and tired of Kojima news that isn't news. It's like, hey, guys, Kojima had a nice seared blackened salmon, and then he patted the corners of his mouth with a silk napkin. And it's like, holy cow, let's write 6 articles on the internet about it and see what this means about the next game that he's developing. But I was on websites last week, and it was like, Hideo Kojima had a conversation with Del Toro. Well, I mean, it's good stuff. It's okay. But I only care about Kojima when Kojima does something, all right? And not when he's made a bowel movement, which is what it's coming down to.
There's like a tabloid-esque quality to the reporting going on with Kojima. Like, Kojima is the Kim Kardashian of gaming right now.
And what I compared to was like a year ago with Phil Spencer, where anytime Phil Spencer tweeted, it was the #1 thing on the Xbox One subreddit, and somebody across the gaming news was going to write an article about it, regardless of what it was. If he was like, we're looking to improve the Microsoft cafeteria, it's like, Phil Spencer comes out in support of good food. So our policy on Player 3 Podcast from here on out is going to be, we will not talk about Kojima in a news-like fashion unless he does something, all right? So even if it's being dominated across the news that he had dinner with such and such and who's a what, until we see what the game is that he's making, we are not going to talk about it.
We're not the TMZ of Kojima. Gotcha. I'm down with that.
All right.
But I want to hear if he's talking to Del Toro, though.
That's fine. Go read it on the internet. We're just not going to talk about it. Everyone else will talk about it. We just won't. All right. Oh, I keep looking over there. And my neck hurts.
Over there because Ben's not there.
Hello, Ben.
After the
Which is really
accident.
just a picture of Willow on the screen here. I'm going to move this over so we can see.
Oh, the puppy.
Look at that. Look at that dog. Look at that dog. All right. First story on the list. Eddie over at GameSpot.
Eddie.
Writing about the Division, saying that the Division will have no microtransactions. So in response to Phoenix credit, these, quote, Phoenix credits that beta players had discovered, Ubisoft Massive's community manager, Nachai Stappers, I'm butchering that?
Probably.
Nachai?
I like that.
Nachai Stappers said, quote, there will be no microtransactions and definitely no pay to win, end quote. So this is good news because back in 2004, the Division, the Ubisoft Massive was batting around the idea of maybe perhaps including some of these pay to win elements. Yes.
So what are these Phoenix credits? Like just the remnants of that idea?
I don't know if it's. I don't really know. He didn't
implied
explain.
you could still obtain them in game.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is particularly good news because the type of microtransactions they were talking about were microtransactions that would help you advance more quickly.
Yeah. Because they were saying, like, we understand it takes time to level up, but maybe you don't want to put in that time, so just throw us a few bones.
Did you get to mess with the Division at all?
I did not. It wouldn't download for me.
That sucks. I think you're gonna love it. It is
Good.
as far as gaming RPGs go. It is very D&D-esque. You've got perks and talents. You didn't get to mess with those in the beta, but then you've also got your skills, and it is very in depth.
From what I've heard from you guys, I'm pretty into it. I just didn't get to do the beta.
All right, next story on the list. Major Nelson, Larry Erb.
That's a.
It's a good first name.
It's a cool name.
That's actually his job title.
What, Major Nelson?
I was listening. He went on Podcast Unlocked and did the interview. That's where these quotes are going to come from. But in the beginning of it, they were talking about how they were like, "So you're the director of programming," which is really like an outdated title over at like at Xbox, and he said, "Well, people say I'm the director of programming, but my title is Major Nelson. Like that's what it says on my business card. That's what it says on my office door. Like I'm Major Nelson." And which led me to wonder if there's like a Sergeant Nelson that works underneath of it. But anyway, he went on Podcast Unlocked and started talking about indies. And you guys didn't put that you had anything to say about it, but I have some things to say about it. Maybe we'll have a conversation. So
We'll elaborate.
he said, quote, "I think arcade was great, was a great defining feature of Xbox 360. It was also a different time then. There wasn't really a way for a lot of independent developers to get out there. Now we have Steam, Greenlight, and a bunch of other platforms, and studios can go right to mobile now. So there's a bazillion ways to do it." And then he continues on later, and he says, quote, "Providing exposure, that's a different problem. We need to be better at that, and that's why I like to mention indie games on my blog. I put them in the show, in a show, which is This Week on Xbox, as often as I can. It's just that everyone's making a game now," end quote. This conversation was interesting to me because we all remember Xbox Live Arcade and the Live Arcade Wednesdays where they would feature a particular arcade game that they, had kind of vetted and said, this is really good. Every game had a free trial that you could try out. And then last summer, we had the Summer of Indies from Xbox. So, like, trying to put these things in the spotlight. But when I think about indie games, I generally think PlayStation or PC. Like, I don't really think of Xbox as, like, this kind of breeding ground for great indie games. And this part of this interview was pretty enlightening to me, that it's, like, trying to figure out, and what wasn't included in the article or any of these quotes is Major Nelson talking about, and people just refer to him as that, like it's his name. Major Nelson talking about how there's so many games out there that it's really hard to pick the good ones and say this, like the curation of these things and the vetting of what's good and what isn't good is really, really difficult because there's far more people making games and putting them out in these spaces. I think that's part of it, but I also think part of it is that Xbox was very combative towards indie games with their policies at the launch of the Xbox One. They had their parity clauses that said, if you're going to launch this game, it has to come on Xbox the same date it launches either on PC or PlayStation 4. Like, it can't come on other things before. And they're trying to play catch up in a lot of this stuff. And they never really saw indies as being a viable market. And now they're looking at it and they're like, oh crap, there's money in this. People are interested in this. And we've kind of alienated a lot of our developers. Because, and the reason for that being, let's say the three of us are working on a game.
Unemployment simulator.
Yeah, unemployment simulator, which probably isn't going to require a whole lot of development or coding, so it's maybe not a great example. But putting a game on, you can't just make the game for PC and then click a toggle button that makes it able to be played on PlayStation 4, and then click it again and it can be played on Xbox One. Like, it requires... And I don't pretend to know anything about it, but there's nuance and there's a time sink in that, and so
I would assume the three don't run on the same type of coding.
Right. Yeah. Well, and there it's different. It's different architecture within the like hardware itself, and like so. Ask the three of us to put our time into making it for PC, and then we gotta step away from that and then make it again for Xbox before we can ever begin making money off of it. Was never a good thing. And so I just think it's interesting that now it's like, okay, this market there's good things in this market, you know. Your Firewatches, your games like The Witness. I mean, we don't have to talk about all the great indies that have come out since the launch of these consoles, but seeing it's yet another thing that Xbox has scrambled on after making a mistake in the way that they were going to approach this console. And that's the only reason I really wanted to bring it up.
I find it kind of odd. Like I don't know the statistics. I don't know the numbers, but from what I've always thought that arcade was very successful. And how did they not know that this was a viable option? Like, I don't get that.
Well, I think it was just one of those ideas that like arcade forged the path for digital distribution. Like Live Arcade existed before iTunes existed. And they were really the pioneers of bypassing physical merchandising to be able to download the software straight from in this, digital storefront. And I think their opinion on the matter was just like, well, now you can buy AAA games in that same way, where back when arcade launched, you couldn't. Like, there was a very small file size limit to games. It was like 500 megabytes or something like that a game couldn't be over that to be on that store. But now you've got these AAA things, and I think they just thought like Live Arcade is a thing of the past, because now we can just put all of these things together. And the problem with the Xbox Live Store, and I see pictures of it all the time, is like, here's Assassin's Creed. Here's Assassin's Creed Collector's Edition with the Season Pass. Here's Assassin's Creed with the Season Pass and these certain things. And it's like, it's the same game in 6 different iterations on the front page of it. And there's no real way of being able to sift through. And, AAAs and indies are 2 totally different animals. Like, you need different spaces to be able to navigate them.
And as much as I love the UI of the Xbox One, the game store from the get-go has been a mess that I just don't navigate. I hate having to go in there for anything.
Yeah. And so there needs to be the space of being able to click and say, well, here's how you can see the indies. Here's how. And I think the fear behind it at first was, well, nobody will click on that indie button if there's an option to go explore all the AAA games. But where indie games are cheaper, they're shorter, and a lot of times more innovative than the AAA stuff. People are seeking these things out, and there's just no easy way to find them on the Xbox unless you just know a title. You're like, I want to buy Oxenfree.
And I would be way more prone to explore the indie tab than I am to explore the AAA tab. I know what's coming out AAA, and I know what I'm going to buy and what market I'm going to buy it on, whether digital or physical. And I'm not browsing through AAA titles.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would browse through some of the indie stuff though, if it wasn't a nightmare.
Well, like I had some money on my PlayStation account the other day, and I mean, I spent 2 hours just clicking on stuff and reading about it and wondering, like, am I interested in this? Am I interested in this? And I just don't feel like you can do that on Xbox, because I'm like, I don't need to see the seven different versions of Rainbow Six Siege I can purchase. Next story. Ori and the Blind Forest developer says Nintendo is being too secretive about the NX. This is from Timur Hussein over at GameSpot. Ori's creative director, Thomas Mahler, talked about Nintendo keeping silent about specs for the NX. Quote, "This is actually the single most annoying thing for every dev out there. We also talked to Nintendo and got absolutely nothing. I'll never understand that. And just to be clear, it's not just Nintendo. Every hardware manufacturer is treating their dev kits and their unreleased consoles like they're the second coming and are insanely secretive about it to a stupid degree in today's time. It's not even that the hardware isn't finished, but you could at least give me the specs so we'd know what to build for. What to build our games for." I'm editing this as I go along. There's copious amounts of language.
This man is very angry.
Yes.
And understandably so, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Continue, quote, "What's needed to sell hardware is good software. With Nintendo not having any dev kits out there at this point and probably even wanting to sell it in 2016, I can already guarantee that they'll just not have any software support since nobody can just jumble games together in less than a year. I mean, you can, but it'll be garbage," end quote.
Whoa.
And this goes back to the idea. Like, you can't just click the NX button and all of a sudden your game works on the NX. You have to know what you're working with these things. And I think we all agree, like, NX is Nintendo's final gasp in the hardware space. and they're going to launch in 2016, and third-party developers still don't have the specs, let alone the dev kits for these things.
I mean, it makes me wonder what they're doing. Like here's the thing: this system is being released, presently during the VR AR race. So like, do they have something like super innovative that they need to keep secret? Like, I don't know.
My thing with that is, I'm sure they think they do.
They think they do. Gotcha.
Guys, we have this super low resolution tablet on the controller that you can use to play your games with. That's the Wii U, by the way, talking.
Like Nintendo, they just need to recognize that the last couple of systems, they did spur innovation, but nobody outside of PlayStation real late in the game, nobody was straight ripping off their ideas. Like, I don't think that's something they need to be super worried about. They need to be super worried about it continuing to exist.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, like, number one, you should have a patent on all of these innovations that you've got on this thing. This thing's about to go final. Number two, if Sony or Microsoft catches wind of it, it's not like they can turn around in 6 weeks and be like, oh crap, the Nintendo's doing this. Here's the exact same hardware available for us. Like, they would have to do their own R&D. They would have to do their own testing of it, their own marketing of it, their own launching of it. It's a few years down the road, and all you're doing is slowing that progress down by months at this point. So just release the specs and give your console a chance to float outside of just the reason anybody owns anything Nintendo now. I really love Zelda and Mario and all this cool, and all of that stuff's great, but it's really the only thing that I can play on these things.
Yeah. My attachment to Nintendo is purely character driven, not driven by any of the hardware. And I've been whining about that since this podcast launched. I want a relevant Nintendo console. I want good graphics. I want good games. And this is not encouraging news.
Guys, I think it's time for the second iteration of Wild Speculation.
Beautiful.
All right. Clearly, this is far more than a console. All right.
Possibly, man. Yeah.
What the heck does this thing do that they don't want anyone knowing about?
I'm
Probably terrorism activity, right?
I'm still holding out hope on what you threw out there. I think you got the speculation from somebody else, but the idea of
This crossover, yeah.
Yeah, it's both a mobile game that you take with you and something that you bring home and plug back into the TV.
I believe this will solve every scheduling problem we've ever had if you buy the NX. Because I'm almost positive this thing can babysit your child. It has advanced child care technology within it, where it can feed your child, it can keep your child safe, it can electrically shock your child when it gets out of line. It comes shipping with one of those electronic collars.
What if it's something like super petty, like it's just like the case of it has a built-in portal for your amiibos, like there's something like super little.
There's just a shelf that you just push your amiibos in.
Watch this button, it just kind of pops up a little bit. Oh gosh.
It's a door, and to get to the one in the back, you got to remove all the others. They just didn't think of that being an inconvenience to everybody. And they make this huge Nintendo Direct thing out of it, where like it's the only announcement that they make. It's like, now featuring storage for your favorite 4 amiibos.
Now, we're focused on Nintendo here, but he did point out that it's not just Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I am reminded of the launch of this console generation and how I didn't buy either system. I mean, there was just nothing. Xbox was a little worse, I think, but there was really nothing to do at first. And I wonder how much of that is because developers weren't getting the specs early enough to be able to do what they needed to do.
And it almost makes you feel like maybe there isn't anything that's going to blow us away about this thing. Because if you were really that excited about your product, wouldn't you want to talk about it?
Or do they just want to flood the market with their own games and not have these third-party people?
Oh, you mean like they did with the Wii and the Wii U and all of that sort of stuff? And it's like, I mean, let's talk about the Wii for a second, because I don't want people to be like, well, the Wii sold over 100 million, like whatever. The attachment rate for software on the Wii was awful. Mm-hmm. Awful. And everyone was buying it so that they could bowl with their grandma over Thanksgiving, because for some reason driving 10 miles down the road and just going to do it wasn't good enough. But people weren't buying games for the Wii. They were just they were playing what came shipped into it. The Wii U, on the other hand, has a great attachment rate, but they have 11 million consoles out in the wild right now. Like I think it was like Splatoon sold almost 2 million copies. Like that's great attachment rate. Was it Mario Maker sold like 5 million or something? Like something insane. Like almost 50% of people who own a Wii U own Mario Maker, and that's wild. But you got it wrong on one end in the Wii. You got it wrong on the other end with the Wii U, and it's looking like you're going to make the same exact mistake with the NX. And I just don't like. I'm sorry if this is the case. The NX doesn't like PlayStation and Xbox could carry over from the momentum and the hype of the 360 and the PS3 and be fine. Nintendo doesn't have that same thing. And it's not just gaming. I mean, think about like the iPhone and how secretive they are about like, we're going to make the screen 0.25 inches bigger, ladies and gentlemen. And we're like, wait, we flew to San Francisco to hear you tell us that? I mean, and Samsung and like all of these different companies, this is how it is. It's like, you don't have this cancer-curing device that you're trying to keep secret, all right? You're making a screen bigger. You're adding fingerprint touch. You're adding a tablet to the controller. You're adding the voice control with the connect, like whatever. It's not that big a deal, and you're hurting your own product in the spirit of secrecy. What's up? What's up, Slushy Canine?
That's an interesting name.
803. Surgeon Simulator gone wrong. All right. Anything else to say about that?
No, just Nintendo, please stop letting me down, please.
No, dude, this is what you want. This is exactly what you want. You want their hardware division to go belly up so they start releasing their characters that you love on consoles that can actually do them justice.
That's not what I want. I want them to do them justice. That is a second option that I'm willing to settle for.
But they would still be doing it. It would still be Nintendo developing the IP.
I don't want that, though. I want them to do good.
Wouldn't that
do
just
well.
be a race for the
No.
votes?
Mr. Feeney. I want them to do good things.
But when they're going to just prove for the third time in a row that this thing is underpowered.
I'm hoping they won't.
I'm
hoping against hope.
Yeah, you just keep on over there in that little corner. Me and Diz will stay over here in what's it called? Reality.
I would love to see them do something like that, just because PlayStation and Xbox, I mean, we can argue all day long about which one's better, but at the end of the day, they're very similar. And I think everyone would benefit if there was a third person in there that actually was doing something to kind of spur the other two on.
Yeah, like add a low-resolution tablet to their controller.
Yeah, you're right.
You're right.
My favorite thing to do with Larry is to take any amount of joy that he may be experiencing
Gosh.
and reduce it to what life is all about. Pure and total misery. All right, moving on. We got reviews.
Death comes to us all.
That's true. Reviews for you. Dizzy.
It's not Primal.
I know. It's called Hands of Fate.
It was free, and it was a blast, man. Oh, man. It was the free games with gold for this month, so you have, I don't know, 6 hours, maybe, to get it for free till tomorrow happens. We had that discussion about, hey, should they be giving out, like, what is their, I don't know. Should they be giving out really good games because, we're paying for the gold? And this game is definitely great because it's super simple. It's like D&D, but with cards. And when you are fighting enemies, it immediately becomes like Batman. Like even down to the buttons being the same. Now, the reason why I love this is because I'm a huge fan of D&D. I'm a huge fan of card games. And you just don't know what you're going to run into because it's you versus this mystic guy. He puts his cards in. It's like a deck building game as well, to where you pick the cards you want, it mixes it in, and then like a pathway, he just flips it over, and you just don't know what you're going to run into. So you have to make a decision about what you're going to do in this moment, whether you succeed or you fail. I haven't bought Primal yet, even though I should, because I just keep playing this game. It's free. Go for it.
I downloaded but didn't try it.
It is a blast. Like it's super simple. Like it really is. It's not incredibly action packed, but you're taking this journey, and it's like D&D. It's perfect.
Awesome.
Love it.
All right, moving on.
Review in a word?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Free.
Free for now. That's a lot of words. Let's see. I don't know. What's the word?
Oh no, as Diz again forgets how a microphone works.
Free is good.
All right, moving on to everybody's favorite segment, the random question of the week. A random question of the week for the month for this week. I didn't know where you were going. You were in you were in the melody, and I think you thought you were in the harmony.
I was like, is he going to go low or high? Because you usually go high.
I normally do, but like I said, I had no idea where you were. Normally Ben's over in the melody, and then you came in thinking you were in the harmony. I'm almost positive, but seeing the exact same notes I was singing.
I don't know.
All right. It's more of a random topic of the week rather than a random question of the week. I want to talk about this Apple stuff, the Apple and the U.S. government stuff. For those of you who live under a rock and have not heard about this or live in another part of the world that doesn't count, because America only counts, Apple is being compelled by the U.S. courts to create a backdoor into the iPhone, the work phone of the San Bernardino shooter, so that the FBI can use the technology they already possess to try to strong arm their way into the phone by guessing thousands and thousands of different combinations of the code without the phone deleting it after the 10th incorrect guess. So, my question to you, it's about privacy. It's about how far should the U.S. government be able to go in compelling a private company to create something that is going to require manpower and time and money and all sorts of stuff to do, and just what these implications could be for U.S. privacy and iPhone encryption and all that as a whole.
I think let's just start with the fact that this is a very thin facade that the FBI is throwing up here. That there's no reason they would need to get into that guy's work phone. He and his wife destroyed their other phones that they actually used to plan these activities out. I doubt there was this oversight of, oh man, I forgot about all the planning I did on my non-terrorist phone. Like, this is obviously them setting up to be able to do this to other phones later down the road. There's no acting like it's anything but that.
Mm-hmm.
No, they shouldn't be able to do it. They shouldn't be able to compel a company to do that.
Yeah. Because the argument goes, and just that for the sake of the other side, the argument goes that since it is the work phone, the company is telling the U.S. government they are allowed to try to strong arm their way into this thing. But that should not be able to trickle down into the government going to a private-owned company and saying, create this software that there's no possible way can just be for this phone. You know, if it exists, it exists, and it's going to exist somewhere for somebody to get their hands on, whether it's the FBI, whether it's hackers, whether it's other countries, whoever it is. It cannot just exist for the San Bernardino phone. And we have to get outside of this mentality that we can trade our right to privacy for the sake of our own safety, because you're just surrendering that safety to somebody else that you have to trust just as much as you have to trust anybody else. And I think if the NSA and all of the stuff that we factually know is wrong with what the NSA did in terms of tapping phones and keeping records on every single American, what leads us to believe that the same government that controls the NSA controlling the FBI, but it's not nefarious what they're trying to do here, right? Right?
Yeah.
And those who would trade liberty for safety don't deserve either, right? Benjamin Franklin?
Yeah. Benny F.
Good old Benny F. So, Slushy Canine, who says it's pronounced Canadian, I don't understand that, says he'll sue the government for invasion of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need a much better lawyer than I'm sure the one that you have.
Yeah.
But
you had a quote from Justice Scalia.
Somebody did. I didn't. I was busy.
Why don't you share that?
Shocking, guys. I didn't know Diz could read. I'm just kidding. He knows how to read. You want to read this? Prove
Yes.
it to the world.
I still don't believe.
What did he say? I just memorized a few words.
I'm not convinced I can read. I just think I've memorized a lot of words.
He said, there is nothing new in the realization that the Constitution sometimes insulates the criminality of a few in order to protect the privacy of us all. Scalia.
And that's what a lot of people don't get. America is about freedom. It's not about total security.
Mm-hmm.
If you want total security, go to a dictator regime. Like, they will keep the country safe.
Except from us,
For themselves.
if they have oil.
And that's the thing. If oh, I see what you're saying. Like, either your government has complete control of your life and can do whatever they want in your life, and they can become the villain, or you're free from the government being able to do that, but you open yourself up to the risk of other villains. Mm-hmm. And there's no perfect world where you're going to be perfectly safe, and we just need to accept that. And if Apple does this, it doesn't matter. As soon as they do it, people who are going to do these things are going to find a different way to keep their information safe.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be like, oh gosh, well, I'm stuck using the iPhone still. Or it's not like they can't develop an app or they can't save their information a different way. Like, it's an arms race. And by the time Apple does that, like, it'll already, like, I'm sure someone has already been like, well, Apple might do this. I'll go ahead and develop this. Like, this conversation's already, like, too late.
Well, and two things. Number one, and take this what you will, McAfee, the guy who made all the like antivirus stuff, went to the U.S. government and said, give me the phone and I'll figure out how to get into it. And the government said, no, we want Apple to do this. And the second thing is there are high-ranking officials in the FBI who are on record saying that they want to outlaw encryption altogether.
Yeah. We've been having that debate.
And this is just the first step into it. The way you eliminate encryption is not by outlawing encryption. It's by compelling companies who create encryption to create backdoors for people who want to get into the information. And then it becomes just a guise of security, where security doesn't really exist, encryption doesn't really exist, privacy doesn't really exist. You just think it does. And that's the problem. Like, and we have to get past this mentality that says, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. And it's like, if I have nothing to hide, you have no reason to want to know what I'm doing. Like, and if your whole point is like, well, I don't have anything to hide, take the curtains down from your house. If you have nothing to hide, keep your door unlocked.
Live stream your entire life.
Yep. Like, if you have nothing to hide, stop taking all of these safety measures of trying to keep people out. Because your privacy matters to some degree, and you shouldn't be able to infringe upon my rights because my privacy matters more than yours does. And that's my biggest issue within this, is just that slippery slope idea of like, well, and like the NSA thing. In what other generation of people would they have found out that the government was spying on literally everything that they did and been like, shouldn't have done that, okay? That was bad, okay? But we're going to totally forget about it because there's a new Rihanna album out.
And the reality, like, so few people cared about that they're undoubtedly still doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I don't know where our tipping point is as a nation against tyranny anymore.
Yeah.
I want to know what it would take.
Yeah.
For us to stand up for ourselves.
Well, we're about to vote a tyrant into office. We're about to vote a fascist in. So, I mean, I guess we're just willing to say, like, we're totally against the socialist guy, but we'll vote Donald Trump in, boys and girls. All right.
Who wants to go after people, get people in legal trouble for speaking out against him? Like, you want that guy in office?
Who literally sues anybody who says anything negative about him.
Slippery Canadian, do you have a spare room I can move into?
Slushy canine.
Slippery Canadian. You said it's pronounced
Yes, slushy Canadian.
Yeah, slushy Canadian.
All right.
So he's not as far north as some Canadians because the snow's just slushy. It's not solid ice.
All right. let's continue some of this vehement conversation about politics and these sorts of matters into the after party lounge. But we'll end it for the audio portion. If you're hanging out with us over on Twitch, stick around. We'll answer your questions and whatnot from the chat. But Larry, let's start with you.
I'm Larry. I'm on Twitter at LairHuntsZombies, LARHUNTS Zombies. Zombies. And are we going to start? I have a question for you.
First of all, speaking of Canada, Busy Moose is here. What's up, Busy
Hey,
Moose?
Busy Moose. It's been a while. Since we're switching over to YouTube, will we be streaming games on YouTube as well?
Did
How does that
Xbox
work?
add a client for
I don't
that?
know.
I think they did. So
Okay.
you should be able to.
We may
We'll
check
figure
that
it
out.
out.
We'll tweet about it. Just follow us on Twitter. You'll figure it out.
At Player 3 Podcast.
And at Lair Hunts Zombies.
All right. Diz.
Hi. I don't do much. You can find me on.
Unemployment Simulator.
That's how I started out every time. You can find me on Xbox Live, Granny Hand Grenade. That's pretty much it. I mean, all I do is play Rock Band. So, whatever. Third best drummer in the nation.
You did. You
I
are.
am.
All right. I'm Luke Croft. You can follow me on Twitter at TK from Antioch. Add me on Xbox Live at Download a Hoagie and PSN at Lodger Blackman. We are the Player 3 Podcast at Player 3 Podcast on Twitter, youtube.com/Player 3 Podcast, which is where all of our live streaming will take place come next week. And iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, leave us a review. We'll read it out on the podcast. But that's it. We are the Player 3 Podcast. Goodbye. We love you. All right.
We love you.
Hello and welcome to the Player 3 Podcast After Party Lounge, where butt bucks are a currency. What do you think of that John Oliver episode I sent you?
That, A, it was hysterical, and B, he just dismantled Donald Trump. Like, one of the things people, if you haven't seen it, go watch is it This Week Tonight?
Last week tonight.
Last Week Tonight, about Donald Trump. So people like him because he speaks his mind. He's tough. He's a good businessman. And what was the other thing? Or is that it?
He's honest.
He's honest. And Oliver just tears that apart because he's not tough. He's a whiny little child. He's got the thinnest skin imaginable.
My favorite, I'm just going to tell the story he tells, all right?
Yeah.
So there was an article that was published in 91, I want to say. It was early 90s, that claimed that he had tiny hands. And he got ticked, filed a lawsuit, didn't win the lawsuit, but in order to remain petty about it, occasionally sends letters to the editor still with a picture of him and his hands circled in the picture to show and illustrate that his fingers are not tiny. This is an actual story. Diz is looking at me like it's not true.
And he wrote in gold Sharpie.
Yeah. Which John Oliver says is just like Trump, gives the appearance of being rich, but is actually a cheap tool.
So he's not tough. As far as being honest and speaking his mind, he's just inconsistent all over the place. I don't even know if he knows what he's talking about half the time. And then the last thing I can't remember what was the last thing. Tough, honest.
Good businessman.
Good businessman.
And he just talked about all the failed businesses.
Yeah, he has a ton of failed business
The
ventures.
Trump steak one. At Sharper Image. They sold steak exclusively at Sharper Image. Donald Trump looked at that and was like, "It's a deal I need to make." My favorite part was him saying that he doesn't settle out of court. And at least 3 times during Thursday's debate, he brought up settling out of court.
Yeah.
All right. Milky513 is here.
Milky.
Slushy Canine wants to see, what's the worst thing you've ever seen?
Like,
God.
like ever seen? Like,
IRL?
Like you,
Or on video?
in real life. Oh, let's do in real life and video, and then we're gonna get out of here because I'm hungry and this is a little late, and I want to watch The Walking Dead.
Thing I've seen. Holy cripes.
I know the worst thing I've seen in real life. I was working at Food Lion. I was bagging groceries, and this guy walked in, and went to the coupon machine, got coupons out, walked in front of the ice machine, and started clutching his chest, fell over. And we called 911, and the dude died before the ambulance even got there. Had a massive heart attack and died. In that very same store, I also witnessed a man taking a hot, steamy dump on the cereal aisle.
So
Do you just stand there and wait, or do you yell at him?
Well, you don't want him to pinch it off.
do you join him?
Just stare uncomfortably into his eyes.
When we were, and I guess we're still in elementary school. My sister and I went with some friends to the YMCA to go for a swim, and as we were about to leave, she pulled open the door, this big heavy metal door, and just the angle of it just ran over the top of her foot, and I saw a few individual bones of her toes through the gash, and the guy watching us just started telling me to shut up because I was like, "Is that her bone? Is that her bone? Is that her bone? Larry, stop! Hush!"
Oh, wow.
She had to get a lot of stitches. It was gross.
Oh, gosh. I'm trying to think.
All right, while you think, Busy Moose says, glad to see you guys. Just curious to know how many listens you get on an episode on iTunes. You deserve more viewers on Twitch. First of all, thank you for the compliment. We believe so as well. We get about 100 plays per episode on Podbean, which kind of aggregates everywhere that people listen. And then we probably get 60 to 100 views on YouTube per video that we do. So it's a small audience, but we have a really dedicated audience, people that show up every week to the stream and stuff. And
Busy, you could really help us out if you leave us an iTunes review.
oh yeah,
because that really does help us get more views.
So if you're on your iPhone and you go to your podcast app, if that's where you listen to us, click on search, because you're probably already subscribed to us. But if you go to search, type in Player 3 Podcast, click the reviews, leave us a review. We will read that out on the podcast when it comes across. It normally takes about a day for it to show up, but if you do it like right now, we will get it read. But the more we aggregate on that, the higher up in the ranks that we go. I mean, the more we accumulate on that, the higher up in the ranks that we go on in the games and hobbies section. So every review matters. We appreciate every review. We appreciate the kind words. He says he'll do it right away. We appreciate it. We love you, Busy. Thank you.
I love you, Busy.
Man, what I'm thinking of, it wasn't like horrifying. It was just super odd. Like my dad and I, we used to ride motorcycles, and there was this timbering area, very large area that we would go and ride our motorcycles in. And one day we were turning this curve, and there was this. We saw that there was a bunch of smoke billowing up, and as we were turning the curve, before we could get to where the smoke was, there was just this bag. All right, it was like a trash bag, and it was cinched off around the neck of a dog, and it was no longer living. So we were like, okay, this is weird. So we kept going around the corner to where the smoke was, and when we turned the corner, there was this car just riddled with bullets, engulfed in flames, with another motorcyclist there, and we're like, what is going on? He's like, I don't know. I just arrived here, and I called the fire department. So I'm like, Dad, let's leave. And he said, we'll be all right, and we drove deeper into the woods. We didn't die, thankfully, but it was weird seeing that dead dog in a bag in an inflamed, an engulfed car full of bullet holes. It was weird.
Huh.
Wow.
I haven't seen like a heart attack or anything or bones.
That motorcyclist was like, I don't know. I just experienced a few hours of blackout rage, and here I am.
Hey, you may remember this one. This was pretty gross to see. So we used to soap up the trampoline.
Oh, yes!
Which is a lot of fun, but also very dangerous. You shouldn't do that. But if you're going to, it's awesome. So what you do is you get your trampoline wet, and you get dish soap because it's the slickest, and you just soap that thing up and start jumping, and everybody slips all over the place, and somebody's going to break something or get injured. Just be ready for it.
Yes.
But one guy decided to do a backflip while the trampoline was soaked up, which is, why would you do that? And so he landed his backflip and just immediately slid backwards over the edge of the trampoline, and the metal bars just took the skin off his shins.
I remember that. We were standing there, and his legs were just bleeding from his knee down. He said, I'm going to go home. He just walked away.
He just walked home.
Like, gonna go
bleeding.
home.
Oh gosh. How about video? What's the worst thing you've ever seen on video?
Oh gosh, man, I've seen a lot of crazy things on video. A lot of crazy things.
I really regret watching this. I'll never do it again. And I'm telling you, if you haven't, like, just don't ever let the curiosity get the better of you. I watched one of the ISIS beheadings of a Christian.
Oh yeah, I've heard. I've never watched it because I've heard it's just like.
And it's
awful.
not a quick thing.
Yeah.
They saw.
Ugh.
It's bad.
For me, the reason why this video is so horrible was because it was someone dying, but also just how calm and how almost level-headed the person was. But it's the Bud Dwyer video where he shoots himself in front of like 30 people with cameras. I think it was weird.
Yeah, I similarly I got in this big kick of going on Snopes and or Snoop is it Snopes?
Snopes.
On Snopes and just reading like the horror parts of it because I mean some of the stuff was kind of creepy and I like reading about like the gang initiation stuff that people claim happened that probably didn't actually happen. But one of them was about a guy who shot and killed a couple police officers and got taken into custody. And he's in the questioning room and he asked for some water. Guy brings him a bottle of water. The officer walks out. He opens up a bottle, takes a few sips, and then leans back, pulls a gun out from his belt, and shoots himself in the head. And this was like a real video. And there's a big conspiracy that the cops gave him the gun and told him it would be better for him to just kill himself than to go through this. But the thing that made it so horrible was how little it affected me when I saw it. Because, you see in movies, it's always like this gore fest explosion. Awful. But it was just a little hole showed up on one side. He tilted his head and blood started to pour out and he was dead. But just seeing the last moments of someone's life, and I guess that, like both instances, like my real life and the new one, like and the video one, like kind of show that. But I don't think there's anything more emotionally impactful than witnessing like the last moments of somebody's life. All right, and on that note,
Wow, that was a bummer.
It's a dark after party.
Oh
lounge.
yeah, you said Bud Light.
I blame Slushy, Canine or Canadian, whichever.
All right, well we're gonna get out of here because I'm gonna go watch The Walking Dead. Seth's telephone number.
Speaking of people dying.
Yeah, Seth's telephone number 276 732
732.